Hey, welcome back to the table. So I had done a playthrough where I went through almost all of 1943 and then started to realize that I had to be getting some rules wrong, and I confirmed that I was. The developer did write me back and clarified some of the rules. He told me that it was obvious from the rule book. I tend to disagree, but he did answer my questions. He at least understood what I was asking and was able to clarify for me. And so I did delete the rules, or delete the videos, because I don't want to mislead anybody about how this game plays, because the way I played it was wrong. So with that being said, for those of you who are wondering where those videos were, that's my explanation. And real quick, there were three major areas that were played incorrectly. And this is just helpful for anybody who's even new. The rules refer to a dead pile. So the dead pile, of course, is when bombers get shot down, they go into a dead pile. And then whenever a new bomber, so let's say, we get to a new month and you get to make a new bomber, they say that you get to grab squadrons from the dead pile. So we just assumed that it was from anywhere that a squadron died. And then to make matters worse is the calendar over here, which tells you when reinforcements come in. It specifically tells you when new squadrons come in. So that was misleading. And it still is. I totally disagree that the rule book covered this properly. But the clarification from the designer is that the entire supply is the dead pile. So all of these are considered the dead pile, even though they never entered the game. So it's really, dead pile to him is synonymous with supply. And then whenever somebody gets shot down, it just goes back to supply, except for the fact that, when you have one of these shot down, a group, it doesn't go back to the supply here, it goes to a dead pile. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous, but now that I understand it, it's easy enough to move forward with. The dead pile, for example, these are not the dead pile. These are unproduced planes, because you have to follow a reinforcement schedule to get those to come out. So that's where it gets wonky. Now, continuing on here, the manufacturing step, which we will get to in a second, says you get to manufacture from the dead pile. And you guessed it, that means we get to take from there. But it does not mean we get to manufacture new groups. So we'll get there, we'll talk about that in a second. And then as far as the bombing campaigns here, these numbers don't mean anything, apparently. They don't mean anything at all. Even though there's numbers printed on there, for whatever reason, those aren't points that are scored by either side. Those are just numbers. So I still think somebody screwing the pooch on that one. And maybe the designer doesn't even realize he put those numbers there. I honestly, why would you put numbers somewhere if they don't mean anything? It's the most strange and bizarre thing ever. So we were scoring victory points there when we shouldn't. And then the last thing is, I did get full clarification that when we have multiple groups attacking in a track, that these fighters intercept every single one. And if this is your first time here to learn about this game, and I'm getting way too in the weeds for you, don't worry, we'll explain it, and we're actually going to start playing right now. And all that stuff I just explained will get explained to you properly. The bigger thing was I did just delete a whole series of videos, and I'm sure some people who've been watching that are wondering, like, what the heck? So that little bit was just for them. And so let me get you right into this. So the turn order is here. And once you play this for a little bit, it is sufficient to at least be a reminder, but there's a lot of details in the rule book that is not listed there. So you're going to need the rule book with you to play this. The very first step of turn 1 is to start at phase 4, which is basically we're going to do our missions. And then in round 2, we would start at phase 1 and do the full caboodle. So phase 4, the very first step of phase 4 is the Royal Air Force attacks. And the Royal Air Force attacks uses this chart here. And in 1943, you can see that a 5 or a 6 means that it does something. Everywhere else, it doesn't do bupkis for us. The X is only used for later years, so don't worry about the X right now. A 1 just means that it hits a heavy industry, and we get to pick. So we want some 5s and 6s in this case. So that part would be good for us. So let's see what we get. And this is pure luck, of course. And we got nothing. So already I'm doing worse than my last playthrough. The other thing you might notice is some of these planes might be oriented differently than the original setup video. I had to reset up the game, so some things might have moved around a bit. And I think actually the only difference would have been this was here and this was there. I think that's all. That puts it back to the correct order. Oh, this one wasn't here. He was on one of these last time. I think it was this one. So there, that's pretty close to the way it was. Okay, so now we have to assign our missions. And so the way this works is we have, from the start, the sub-bases are an active campaign. And it says so here in January on the calendar. So the sub-bases are the only active campaign. And of course, we start with phase 4 mission construction. So the way the sub-bases work, and I do like this number here. That number means something. That means there's only 2 of them on the map. So you don't have to sit there and remember how many there are. There's 2. And the way the rule works is the 2 of them are here. If I bomb them, I get to move that counter. When we get to the right phase of the game, that counter will move left for everyone that's destroyed or bombed, and then it'll move right for everyone that's not bombed. And if it ever gets to this defeat spot, you lose the game for good. Now, it just moves left and right. And since there's only 2 of them, it's only going to go 1 space to the left. If it's bombed, all you have to do is bomb 1 of them is what I'm getting at. And then it'll never move, right? It moves 1 space to the left, and then it moves 1 space back to the right because you only bombed 1. So as long as you have 1 of them bombed, you never have to worry about those. But that's the first thing in the game. I was aggressively bombing both of them last time because I thought that this meant we made them lose points. Apparently that's not true. So that completely changes and deprioritizes, these missions. They're not as important. So I'm a little disappointed at that. But with that said, that's one of the things you have to bear in mind. I highly recommend that you bomb at least 1 because the other, of course, is it's just a bonus. The other thing is to help you with this game is how does this work? How do points get scored? So we just explained the bombing campaigns. So let's do the rest now. There's 4 ways to lose this game. We went over 1. If the sub bases aren't bombed and this thing moves to the right, we lose. The other way we lose is if the Germans score 140 points. We lose that way. We lose if the Germans ever have this red number here. So see this red number, 140, 130, 120. So if by March of 1944, the Germans have 140, we automatically lose. And the designer was saying that this is just a calculation of, like, it's impossible to actually win. If you played out the rest of the game and they had that many points, you couldn't win. So that's an interesting thing. It's just basically a give up factor. And then the last way you lose is if you get to the end of the calendar and you still haven't won. Now, how do we win? Well, that's easy. Right now, we just need to score 1 point. We have to get to positive points. Right now, we're at 0 points. And if we got 1 point, we win. So guess what? We're not scoring any points this round. This is one of those games where the Germans are going to be scoring points like mad at the beginning of the game. And we need to like stop the bleeding. And then eventually get to a point where we start gaining points on them. That's what we're trying to do. And let's talk about a little bit more about how that works. So the first way they score points is with Berlin. Right now, Berlin is completely undamaged. So they're going to score 1 point because it's completely undamaged. If we can damage one of them, we can stop them from scoring a point. If we can damage all 3 of them, then we score a point. Okay, that's it. That's the first way. The second way is every heavy industry on the game, which is these industry tokens, the aircraft factories, and the oil. Those are worth 1 point for either of us. 1 point for us if it's bombed, 1 point for them if it's not bombed. And right now they're scoring a boatload of points. I think it's like 19 just from that alone. And our little crappy squadrons of 3 bombers are not going to cut the mustard. Oh, I got to remove the railroads and the bridges. They're coming out soon, but not yet. They're definitely coming soon, but not yet. All right. Sorry about that. The third way that we lose points, only the Germans can score points, not us, is if they were to damage or destroy a squadron, which is what this is, there's no harm, no foul to us. But if they ever damage or destroy the group, then they score 4 points. And yes, that's a big score for them. So these are like hit points. And you sort of want to use hit points to protect your bombers. All right, so that's it in a nutshell for the scoring. The last thing that I want to mention is that when we do bomb something, it gets these little bomb counters. And so, for example, this one here, it does not mean 4 damage. It's just a 4. And at the end of the round, every round, the Germans repair. So we would roll dice, and all the 5s and all the 3s automatically repair. So this one would stay damaged. That's all that 4 is for. So if I ever rolled a 4, if I can find it, if I ever roll a 4, then this one actually goes back in the cup, and all the damage we did to that particular factory has been repaired. So mentally, just make sure you understand that, because it's a different concept than most games. Like usually when you bomb something, you do a certain number of damage, and then after a certain amount of damage, it's destroyed. That's not the case here. Everything repairs itself, and it's all pure luck on what does and does not. So that can be very frustrating, and it can get you quite badly. All right, so now I think that you at least understand the basic gist, and I apologize for those who have already watched me go through this, because none of this changed, or I didn't get any of this part wrong. But let's jump in and assign our missions. So we do want to do these submissions, and basically these are tracks. So the track goes all the way back, and I call them lanes. So this is lane 8. You'll hear me call it that, but per the rules, it's track 8. This is a zone, and these fighters will intercept anybody that tries to go into this track. There's a die roll you do to determine if they do or don't. Okay, so you can get lucky sometimes. There's only a BF-110 guarding 8. So 6, 7, and 8 these are the weaker ones. These are the core here, 1, 2, and 3. So these ones tend to be more strongly defended and a lot more difficult to do. So when we assign our missions, we have to send a bomber group at all times. The fighter group can only escort. This fighter group has an INT, and I can't remember how much I described in a setup video, but that means it can go into the interior. So there's coast, and you can see it here. This is coastal. This is the interior, the next level, and then the third level back is deep. So these initial fighters can't hit the deep targets. The bombers can, but then they would have to go unescorted, okay? Last thing to understand is that each bomber type, so a B-24 cannot do a bombing mission with a B-17. They have to be separate missions, but the two B-17s could go together on one mission, all right? All right, so let's dive in and go. So I definitely want to go after one of those sub bases. So I'm going to do a B-24, and I'm going to go after, so what you do is you select which target do I want to do, the interior one or the coastal. The coastal is an easier target, so I'm going to go after the coastal, and I'm going to do it with the B-24. And then I'm looking over here, and I see opportunities to possibly strike one of these tracks. And that's what I'm thinking of doing. Let's talk about these other targets for a second. The industry is just plus points. That's it. Actually, I think they represent cities. That's not industry. Those are supposed to be buildings for cities. Bombing the cities are just points, and to be quite honest, you should ignore those in the beginning. The oil fields help. So for every oil field that's still up, the Germans will repair a damaged plane. And that's pretty powerful for them. For every aircraft factory that's up, they will repair a destroyed plane, or they will manufacture a new one. Because it's actually called manufacturing, not repair. And so that's where it's deadly. And that's the rule I got wrong in the last video. We were only repairing the manufacturing, the rule book says it manufactures anything from the dead pile. Well, in order for something to be dead, it had to be alive at one point. And so we didn't think that you could just grab from the supply. But in this case, it does. They manufacture new planes from the supply, even though the supply is referred to as the dead pile in this case. So I still think it's, an issue with the rulebook, but neither here nor there. The thing is that these have all of a sudden become really high value targets. So we want to go after those, is what I'm trying to get at here. So there's a juicy coastal one here that's pretty easy to go after. Since there's only one plane here, there's a juicy one in the interior here at Gotha. But I happen to have the anti-air on that one, which stinks, because that's going to make it a little bit tougher. It's like the equivalent of having another plane with them. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go after lane 3 here. And so I'm going to send an escort and 2 B-17s, and we're going to assign them all to Munster. Now, you can do multiple targets, but the same bombing groups can't go after multiple targets. So if let's say I wanted to do Dolman as well, then I would have to assign a different bombing group to that. And so you just put them this way, and then whatever one's on top is the one, this is the order you're going to execute them. So you have to be very mindful of the order you want to execute them. And it does matter because these could intercept the first group and get shot down before the second group goes. So you sort of want to think that way. And then when your fighters are escorting, they're probably a really good chance you're going to intercept these guys in the early rounds. But your fighters could still miss them and not hurt them, and there's all kinds of factors that make it hard. But the one thing is their fighters don't have any squadrons at the beginning of the game, and so you sort of want to take advantage of that if you can. Okay, so after doing that, let me make sure I'm not missing anything. We then resolve these. Okay, so let's start with the sub mission. That might be a little easier. With the sub mission, Basically, we're going to roll to see if he intercepts us. So I'm going to roll a die. I rolled a 3, and I actually don't think he does, but let's check. There's the Luftwaffe Scramble, and I'm going to put this underneath the camera here. The Luftwaffe Scramble table, it's a coastal target, and a 3 is half of them are going to scramble. Well, there's only one unit there, so he's going to scramble. So we are going to get him he's going to come up and attack us. So only a 1 or a 2 would mean nobody attacks us. So you can see that there. Then with the interior, only a 1 is nobody, and then same with the deep. And then the half sort of shrinks, and then eventually it's all. So the fighters are going to definitely scramble the deeper you go. Okay, so with that said, this BF-110 here is going to join the party. And the way the rules are written, you're supposed to move everything in to show we're attacking this zone. I mean, you can just look at this to know which zone you're attacking in. So I don't know, from an efficiency perspective, it'll save you moving stuff around. But here's the part that matters. So now we have to do, normally there would be air combat between the fighters, but we don't have any fighters here, so we skip that step. The next step is we're gonna see if we're gonna have to resolve the battle over the target. And so the battle over the target is any of these that survived the fighter step, which this one did, and the anti-aircraft that's here, and then also this if it existed, but it's over on track 2. So we're going to add all of them up. So you have a 1 plus a 1 is 2. And then the thing I always forget, so hold me accountable, is the target itself here, it says AA1, so that's 3. So they have a combat value of 3. And so then we roll dice, and that's not a good roll, but, and then we take our little sheet again, and I'm going to slide underneath again. And so you look up here, 3 is, think of this as a 1 to a 3, and this is a 4 to a 6, and then a 7 through a 9. So a 3 is going to be this column. If they would have gotten to 4, then they would have gotten to use this column. And you can see here that they rolled a 4, so the 4 is 0 hits. So we didn't take any damage. And see how it's red along the left? You use the red die for this table. So let's say that we were using this column. A 4 would have been 1 hit. But then we're going to go down to this table to see, is that hit damaged or destroyed? And that's where this comes in. So the green 6, you would go all the way down to the bottom. And since there was only 1 hit, it would be 0 damaged, 1 destroyed. Okay? But that's not the case here. We rolled a 0, so nothing happens. The green die is actually ignored in this case. All right? I hope that makes sense. It's that simple. And what's now going to happen is we get to attack this. Now, we never get to attack the ground anti-air. So if this guy wasn't here, we wouldn't do this next step. But we actually have a combat value of 4, 3 plus 1. So now we get to attack. So we take our dice. We got a 5-2. And we had a 4, if you remember. So the 4 means we get to go here, the 5 means we hit one, and the 2 means it's damaged. So so this guy gets damaged. And they have a damaged forces staging area up there. I just keep a little cup, and I call it the penalty box. So 1 got moved to the penalty box. All right, so that's how the combat's resolved. That fighter got damaged. And now all you do is, do we have any bombers that are left alive? We do. So we come into here and we grab something from this cup and we put this bomb marker on breast. So it's bombed and it has a number 5 on it. And then these guys return home. So that's how you resolve that. I know there's other targets on this trek, but we didn't choose to go after those. So now we move over to this one. So this one, we're going again against a coastal target. So we're going to roll to see the fighters. I rolled a 2. And against a coastal target, none of the fighters intervene. See the word none there? Well, actually, See, I've done like a whole bunch of videos of this, so I've been skipping this, but so there's the 1 and 2. I gotta show it at least on this first couple videos, help people out with the game. So these guys are not going to intervene. They're just staying and watching their movies. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bomb this target, and all that they have is an anti-air of 3. That's it. So I'm going to go ahead and roll for them. And we rolled a 3-2. And I can already tell you that's a miss. So an anti-air of 3. Right there, it's column 1, and it's a miss. Remember, the red number is what we use. And then we don't need to roll because we're not attacking anything back. So we just automatically damage this Basin Munster. And so it takes a damage, and it also has a 5. So that would be disastrous if we roll a 5 during the repair step. Now, there's this thing called a fighter sweep, and we have the option to do that only against heavy targets. That submarine was not a heavy target. So after we survived a mission, the fighters that are remaining could do what's called a fighter sweep, where they could choose to engage these fighters that didn't take off. And what it would be is it would be a combat round, just like what we did, where we roll these 2 dice and compare it to their strength. But instead of it going up against a 7, it'd be a 7 divided by 2 rounded down, which is a 3. And then the thing is, though, it would be a 5 divided by 2 rounded down, which is a 2 for us. So yeah, we would do combat with each other, with both of us using the first column of that chart. It's a really risky thing to do unless we can outnumber them, because that first column only does damage if we roll a 5 or a 6 on the red. So you're basically taking a chance that a 40% chance they hit you and a 40% chance you hit them. So I don't know how valuable that is, and you're going to soon find out that they're going to repair everything anyways. So taking out those fighters, not necessarily worthwhile right now. Now, when you have like multiple missions going in the same track, and they chose to stay home like this, which is sometimes a surprise, right? Because you don't expect that. You may have had a whole bunch of fighters here waiting to ambush them. And then basically they didn't take the bait, right? Well, then you would do a fighter sweep at the end of that first mission to kill as many of these as you can. So that way when the second, third, and fourth missions go, there's, you at least had some of their fighters whittled down. That's the idea. In the early game, you just don't have enough of anything. And you really don't want to take damage. It's okay that if one of them's damaged, but you don't want anything to be destroyed. The destroyed part is where it's bad. And we actually went completely undamaged on this one, which that never happened before. And we destroyed the 2 targets. So, okay. What's done after this? After this, we do campaign and victory points. So for the campaign track, it started on 0. I bombed one of the targets, but then I didn't bomb the other, so it just moves right back. It moves left for the one bombed, move right for the one not bombed. According to the designer, these numbers mean nothing, and I only have to worry about it getting here for defeat. So this is not a very important target anymore. In the past, I was really ambitious about getting the -2 because I wanted to take 2 points away from them. But that's not the case. Okay, I think you can tell I'm a little sour about that one. I actually thought it meant more when you could actually influence the score. Okay, moving on though. The next thing is they get 4 points for every group that they damaged or destroyed. They don't get anything there. Their Berlin is fine, so they're going to get 1 point for that. And that 1 point gets canceled because this is a 1 point for us, right? So the Berlin gets canceled by this. So then from here, we're just adding the heavy targets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just in this track alone. 7, 8, 9 in the back. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So they scored 20 points in this first round. Yeah, there's no way we were going to get a positive point there. And And so then they have what's next. The next step is the Germany retreat step, which you don't have to worry about until you get to, trying to zoom my camera in here. See where it says retreat, retreat, retreat? Those are the only 3 steps where you would do the Germany retreat step that's listed right here. Okay, so it's written in red, and I give them credit. That part's nice that he highlights that. But we're going to do the Luftwaffe refit and then manufacturing, and I'll explain that, and then the German bombing repair. Okay, those are the next 2. Okay, Luftwaffe refit is you count up the oil fields that are still undamaged, and they're going to repair anything that's in the damaged forces staging area. And that's it. So this basically, they had 1 damaged unit and it's going to get repaired. Okay, so I'm just going to put it on the board for now. They would have repaired 6 of them if they, well, let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, they could have repaired 6 units. So their ability to repair units is, at 6. Oh, actually, the player aid actually helps you with this. Right up here in the corner, see it says Luftwaffe repair 6, manufacturing 6. So you don't have to sit there and count them all the time. So that part was helpful. So yeah, they would repair 6. There's only 1, so the other 5 are wasted. But the manufacturing 6, that's a big deal. Because since there were none dead, they get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're getting 6 counters. Like that. However, we destroyed one of them. Because we destroyed an aircraft factory. So they're getting 5 counters. All right, so is that making sense so far? And this is something I didn't do in my other playthrough that's now deleted. So this drastically changes the game, which is why I deleted those other videos. This was, I would have just led people down a very dark path. Okay, so what do the rules say? Well, the rules say that for this guy, we would do placement, just like in the setup, except there's a track that's completely empty. So that's top priority. So we fill in the empty tracks. Then the rules say that these squadrons are going to go on the highest value targets first. So like the 6s are going to get the squadrons first. So 6, 6, and 6. So then after that, I think it just keeps going until everybody has at least 1 squadron. So the 2 SKU gets 1. And then the one of these 1s. Now, when there's a tie, and there's a whole bunch of 1s left, it goes to the core area. And then within the core area, we have a tie still. Then it's going to go to the lowest number in the core area. So it's this guy. He gets the last squadron. So basically, they got some nice squadrons filled out. All right, and then we do the bombing repair step, which is don't roll a 5. And we rolled a 5. So all the work we did just got negated, and we're back to square 1. And that's just the luck of the draw. If I would have rolled that, we would have been fine. Okay, so that's the first round of the game. Now for the second round of the game, it starts off, and we're going to go ahead and just move right into the second round here. The very first step says Luftwaffe moves to anti-air. So what you do is you roll 2 dice, and then you consult the new group placement. So we rolled a 6 and a 1. So 6, 1 is 8, which is really crappy. But basically this anti-air now moves to the 8 track, and that's where the subs are. So now we're going to have to deal with extra anti-air against the subs. So that part blows. The next part is we're going to reinforce the core area. So the core area here, as you can see, has 2 planes, 1 plane, 2 planes. If at any time the non-core areas, which is lane 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, if they ever have 2 more groups than the core area does, then their strongest one of whatever area has the most groups is going to move to the core, the weakest in the core. So it's just basically, they're going to protect the core more than they're going to protect those other regions. None of that triggers right now, just explaining that this is a step in the game where that would occur. And then we do our refit in manufacturing. So for us, we are moving to February. Okay, so let me see if I can zoom this in a bit. We are in February now, and then our refit is in manufacturing is 1 and 2. Okay, 1 and 2. And then we're going to get these new units that are listed over here as well. So what that means is, so we're doing refit and manufacturing first. And then after that, well, no. I'm sorry. We're not doing that first. We do the new air groups first. So the new air groups, the Luftwaffe, are all going to get +1 squadron. And then they're going to get 2 of these DE-520. And then for the U.S. Air Force, we get all +1 squadron and a P-47. Okay? So, and then what the designer said is that that +1 squadron doesn't mean we're giving +1 squadron. Oh no, it does, it does. So, it gets really interesting here and how this plays out. So, it said Luftwaffe all +1 squadron. So, everybody gets another squadron. So, things just got real. It's a whole different ballgame than that first turn was. And so you just keep going until everybody gets +1 squadron. And they're going to have a whole bunch now. And 1 here. And 1 here. Okay. So then the Luftwaffe gets 2 of the DE-520 School, which are these. So they're pretty wimpy guys. And then the rulebook says that they always get, any new unit comes with a squadron from the dead pile, which we now know is the supply. So that helps, right? So those need to be placed. So again, we're going to just roll, and a 1-4 is lane 1, and then a 2-5 is lane 2. So that's how it would look. Okay. So then the new groups for us is all of our forces get +1 squadron, and then we get a P-47. So for us, we get a 2. Because the 2s are the fighter squadrons. And then we're going to get 3 1s for our bomber squadrons. Okay, now we do the refit manufacturing. If we had any damaged forces, we would repair those with the refit. And how many would we repair? That's where the calendar comes in here. So you can see it says 1-2 for February. Well, the 1 is for fighters. So we're going to refit 1 fighter and we're going to manufacture 1 fighter. And the 2 is for bombers. We're going to refit 2 bombers and manufacture 2. So we have nobody damaged. So there's no refits that are going to occur. But we get to manufacture a fighter, which is a squadron. We don't get to just say, oh, I want to get a P-47 or I want to get another P-38. You know, that we don't get to do. But for the manufacturer, we get to at least take one of these. And it has nowhere to go but to the 1 fighter that we actually have. And then for the bombers, we get to refit 3. And since nobody was, get to manufacture 3. And since nobody was destroyed, we're going to get 3 more. So this game is amping up quick compared to my last playthrough. In the last playthrough, we didn't have nearly as many counters on the board as we do right now. And then it says we get a new P-47. So that's this guy, and every new unit comes with its own squadron, so boom, we get a marker for that as well. In between missions, at any point in the game, you can move stuff around, so I would obviously move this marker over to here, and that's what you get to do. So this is going to be our makeup for February of 43, which isn't much, but that's all we got. And then, okay, so the next step says add or remove bombing campaigns. Well, that's you just look at the calendar again, and the calendar says it's still subs. In the next month, we're going to be adding railroads. See how the railroads underline? It tells you that the underline is add, and then remove is in parentheses. So the railroad campaign is coming next month, but this month it's still just subs, and that's it. So we don't do anything for that step of this round. And now we're back to phase 4, which is where we started the last round. So we're gonna roll for the RAF attack. Remember, a 5 or a 6 is what we're looking for, so nothing happens. And then we jump right in and we assign our bombers, and we keep going. So we could ignore the subs if we wanted. We can afford to do that because the AA gun won't stay there probably. Or we could just go in and try to take out that AA gun. And then I'm looking at these other targets. I still think taking out this is a priority because we want to reduce how much they manufacture. Yeah, I mean, that's really where I'm at. So I actually want to just go after the same 2 targets I did before. So the B-24 is once again going to go here, and we're going to go after their coastal. And I apologize, I just knocked over all these supply units. So I'm going to go after their coastal target of Brest with the B-24, and I'm going to send a P-38 escort this time because they got some fighters there. And then we're going to send both of our B-17s against the Munster target over here with a P-47 escort, and we're going to take on lane 3. So let's start to the right here. So let's see if they intercept. They don't. A 1 or a 2 on a coastal is not an intercept. And just right here, we rolled a 2. Okay, so no intercept there. All right, so the planes don't come out and don't do anything. So now we're just dealing with the coastal target. So the coastal target has an anti-aircraft of 1. The target itself has a 1 for 2. This is 2 more for 4. So, and I'm realizing I probably forgot to add the 3 to this last time. So 4. This is always bad if it's a high number. So 4 is this column, and a 6 is 2 damage. And then this 4 is 1 damage, 1 destroyed. So the destroyed part is what hurts, because we remember we were manufacturing new stuff, and now we just lost. So one of these is destroyed, so it goes into the dead pile, and then 1's damaged, so it's going to go into our penalty box. The damaged one's not so bad because we're going to repair those just fine. But that's it. There's nothing for us to attack back because their planes didn't launch, and so we damaged the target. So I'm gonna grab this. So now he gets a 4 this time. So mission successful, but we lost 2 of our counters, which that's different than the last outcome. And no, I cannot do a fighter sweep here because that was not a heavy target. So that, always remember that part. Actually, I would have loved to have done a fighter sweep in that situation, but that's not something I can do. Now over here, we're going to see if they launch. I rolled a 1. They do not. The planes do not intercept. So now we're just going against an AA gun of 3, and then 3 more because of the target, which I think I missed last time, so I apologize. And then the 6 is awful. Just awful rolling at the beginning of this game so far. And a 6 is this column, and again, it's 2. And then a 5 is a 1 and 1. So we have to take 2 counters, and 1 gets destroyed, and 1 goes in the penalty box. So that hurts. But we make it through, and we can damage the target, so it gets a 5 again. So the target is now damaged again. So we're back to where we started. Now, I could do a fighter sweep. I happen to have a fighter here, and we could try to do a fighter sweep, but I really don't think the odds are in my favor. So I'm just going to head home. All right, so we did that, so now we do scoring. First, we manage the bombing track. It goes left 1 and right 1, so nothing happens. Then we do the actual scoring. Berlin's intact, so they score a point. There's no groups destroyed, so they don't score points for that. We bombed 1 target, so that cancels Berlin. And if you remember from last time, they scored 20 points. They're scoring 20 points again, so they're up to 40. So that's the end of round 2. Now the Luftwaffe are going to refit and then manufacture. Well, refit, they had nobody damaged, the Luftwaffe, so they get to manufacture, and they're down to 5 airplane plants, so they get 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are coming out. So, where do they go? Well, that's an interesting one. They're going to go on all the places that don't have 2. So, it's actually these 1s. So, 1, 2, 3. And the core areas would have gotten it first. So, the fact that I gave 1 here was wrong, other than, you know, it worked out just fine. And then out here, you would actually... it's always still the lowest number, so the 6 gets it before the 7 and the 8. So that's what they do. And then we repair, and I got a 1 and a 4, so that submarine base repairs again. So that's a pesky little submarine base over there. That's the end of round 2. And so you can really start to get going quick, especially when you don't have to explain what you're doing. So I'm at 48 minutes. Let's do round 3. So we start by moving the anti-air. So I rolled a 1-1, which if you look at the chart is lane 1. So this anti-air is going to move to lane 1, like so. In case you're wondering, what does this do? It just adds +2 to any mission that's in that track. So it doesn't matter what section you're bombing. They get to add their value to any mission in that track. Okay, so then we move the AA. Then we get to reinforce the core area, which is the check to see if there's anything that has more groups than the core. That doesn't happen. And then we're going to do the groups. So basically, we do this here. So I know I'm at an angle because I'm at the edge of my table here, but February goes to March. And so you can see here that the railroads become active. And that gets done later in the game, but it doesn't hurt to do it now. So what you do is you take your bombing campaign and you create the railroads here. And then these railroad tokens become active. So I'm just going to set them here. And you look on the board, and everywhere there's a railroad, they get placed. So, for example, you can see Amiens has 1, and then Aachen has 1, and Stuttgart etc. So Cologne, Frankfurt, and Bielefeld. Okay, so that's what the campaigns does. And then if we come back over here, I almost wish I could turn this like this, because this would be the most helpful for us. All right, so then this is our refit and manufacture. It's still 1 or 2 for March. And then you can see the Luftwaffe gets an FW-190 and a DE-520 School, and we get a P-47. So just real quick, the FW-190 is this guy, and the DE-520 is that one. And they're coming with their own markers. So to be quite honest, the Luftwaffe is running out of markers already. So they don't get new ones if they run out. So, all right, so let's roll for those. 2-1, this is going into lane 2. And 6-2 is lane 8 for that one. All right, and then we get a P-47. So sorry for the bouncy. So we get a P-47, and he comes with his own squadron. All right. Then we do refit and repair. Well, the refit actually has 2 damaged bombers, so they're going to get refit. And remember, it's a refit 1 for fighter, 3 for bombers. So, I'm sorry, 2 for bombers. So we had 2 in the penalty box, so we refit both of them. And we'll figure this out in a second. And then we get to manufacture 1 fighter and 2 bombers. So for the fighter, we're going to get another one of these. And if you recall, there were 2 bombers that were actually destroyed last time. So all we're doing is getting back to where we were. Because this case we had 1 damaged, 1 destroyed. And this one was also 1 damaged, 1 destroyed. And we're just getting the 2 destroyed ones back. So we didn't gain any ground on this one. But I can add more strength to our P-47s and give our bombers some extra life here that they could really use. So 1 there and 1 more for him. Cardinal rule, squadrons can never be by themselves. They have to be attached to something, and you're going to have unlimited. Okay? So it almost doesn't matter what the order is that you do things, but the actual order of the game is you move the anti-air, you check the core, group thing, then you reinforce the groups from the calendar, then you would refit and repair the Americans. Remember, the Germans refit and repair at the end of the round. And then you would move the campaign markers. So like put out the railroads, for example. I don't know if there's ever a time when that order is going to matter, but I just want to make sure that you understand that if you're trying to make sure that you have it all right. And if you ever have any questions, it's written right here on this. And of course, the rule book has a lot more detail. So now we do the RAF attack. And this is where, in our last game, we got really lucky and the RAF hit Berlin twice. We haven't even hit them once. And but we did hit them this time. So I got a 5. So when the RAF attacks, you get to pick any heavy target on the map and do damage to it. So we do Berlin because that prevents them from scoring a point, right? And then I'm going to do the Berlin manufacturing, like the aircraft manufacturer, because I don't want them to make any more planes, right? So if we kill something, I want it to stay dead. And so that's why I go after that first. I still think the oil fields might be the better path, and the cities seem to be the lowest priority target, by hands down, lowest priority for the city. So there we go. We got a 5 there on Berlin. and that will prevent them from getting an extra victory point. So we already got them down to 19 this time. And then we assign our missions, and we go off again and again and again. And now the designer has in his notes in the rule book that 1943 is all about survival, and then you should wait until 1944 before you start to really punch back. But even though 43 is about survival, you can't let them keep scoring 20 points every round. That's the part that hurts. So let's figure out what we're going to do. So we have the submarine situation. It's back. And then we have all these railroads we need to hit. So for a brief period, I don't think the heavy industry is a target right now because we got to hit everything else. So what I'm going to do is, once again, we're going to send our B-24 after the Brest target because that just makes sense for them to keep going after that. And we do have a P-38 that we can send along. And I'm going to send them with 2 squadrons. So the P-38 is going to come along, and we're going to go after the Brest target again. Okay. And then we're going to go after this railroad here on 6. And we're going to do that with a B-17. And then Amiens is a interior target. And we're going to send a P-47 with 3 squadrons against that one. And then we're going to go against the interior target of this one with a P-47. And we have Aachen. And I don't have more bombers. I can only do 3 at a time. So that's the best I can do. All right, so starting with the one on the far right, track 8. Remember, a 1 or a 2 means they don't intercept on a coastal. So again, we avoided them. And just a quick reminder that on track 8, the end of air is only 1, and this is only 1, so that's 2. So we're rolling against a 2, and of course we keep rolling devastating numbers. And for a 2, that is a hit, and it's a destroy. So that just is so annoying. So we got another bomber destroyed, which is slowing down our manufacturing process, but we do hit the target. And it's a 2. So Brest. Got to keep abreast of the situation. And the situation is you're down. So now we go to this one, and we're going to roll to see if this one intercepts. And this is not a coastal. This is interior. And I rolled a 2, which for interior is half of them. And since there's only 1, that means he does intercept. So now we got to do air combat between our fighters. So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, whoops. This is the wrong one. I guess we give it to the B-17. And did I grab the wrong one for the fighters? This should be easy enough to figure out. We had we started the game with this. Then everybody got +1. So that means he would have become this. And then we ended up getting a P-47 with 1. And we manufactured another 1. Then we got another P-47 with 1, and we manufactured another. Yeah, this is correct. I just had the squadron on the wrong one. Okay, so as I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's a 5 versus 9. And no, the anti-aircraft never participate in these dogfights. So for them, still rolling really bad. So for a 5, a 4 is a hit of 1, and then a 6 is a destroy. And that's what hurts. So P-47 got destroyed. The squadron did. And now it's for us where we had 9 and everything's simultaneous. So you get to count the dead ones. So see, the 3 is what we want them to roll. And for us with a 9, the 3 is a hit and the 6 is a destroy. So we destroyed one of theirs. And that's it. So now we get to the target. So the target has an anti-air of 4. The target itself, I'm sorry, the zone has a 4. The target itself has a 1, so that's 5. And then this is a 6 and 7, 8. Yes, the surviving interceptor participates now. So it's an 8, and that's up against our bombers. And that's what we want to see, is more of those. So an 8 goes against the 7 column, and a roll of a 1 is 0 hits against our bombers. So we needed that. And this fighter, by the way, is out. You can just send him home. He doesn't participate anymore. And so we're going to survive and actually hit the target. That part's a guarantee because the bombers didn't take any hits. But since there were interceptors, we get to hit them back. So 3, 4, 5, 6. And so we roll a 6 against them. And we got a 3, 5. And the 3 on a 6 roll is a miss. So we don't hit them. This guy just lands. And then we get to land. But first, we damaged a railroad. Okay, and then we move on to this last one. And again, we roll. He's going to intercept. So 2, 4, 6 against us. And that 6 is just brutal. Absolutely brutal. So with a 6, he damaged 2 of our, he destroyed one of our squadrons and damaged the other. And we get to attack back with a 5, 7, 9. And we needed that to be a 6. So with a 9 and a 4, we damaged just one of theirs, and it's only a damage. They're going to repair that like nothing. So then we get to the target, and the target has a 4 anti-air zone, and then the target itself has a 1 for 5, and then this is 6, 7, 8, 9 against us. So a 9 with a 4, 5 is 2 hits. So 1 is damaged and 1 is destroyed. So we're taking a beating on stuff that shouldn't be beating us so badly. But 1 is damaged, 1's destroyed. And then 3, 4, we get to roll for a 6. And there we go. We're getting them back now. So with a 6, we did 1 damage, 1 destroyed. So now which one gets destroyed, which one gets damaged? This is the one that gets damaged because it's a group. Remember, groups are different than squadrons. This will be the one that gets destroyed. That's it. We actually damaged the target. So that gets a 4. And then these guys go wee all the way home. So we took a lot of losses there, which are going to be hard to replace. So now we do the scoring track thing. So we come back here to the bombing campaign. This goes left and right 1. We destroyed 2 of these, but there's 6 total, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that moves it to the right. Okay? And that's it. That's all that does. And now we do the victory points. The only good news is none of our groups got damaged or destroyed. So we don't have any actual -4 victory point thing going on. But what we have is we robbed them of their 1 victory point from Berlin. So they don't get that anymore. Remember, they always scored 20. But we actually now have 1, 2 heavy industry that's damaged, and that negates 2 of theirs. So So these two don't count. So let's just say that's -2, and then this is -1, that's 0. And then now we start counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm sorry, don't count the railroad. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So we got them down to 18 now. So here's 10 and 8. So they're at 58 points after 3 months. So last thing we do is then their refit and manufacturing. So for them, their oil fields are completely undamaged. So they refit both of these, no problem. So those two get repaired, lickety split. And then as far as the heavy aircraft, they have 4. So they're gonna get 1, 2, 3, 4, which, I mean, as much as I'm going after the heavy aircraft, I mean, look, they only have like 4 tokens left. Really, the oil fields are the better targets. I was wrong. You can't stem that wave of aggression there. And this guy, his priority is he's going to fill the empty track. And then when these come in, they're going to go against the ones that only have 1. And then they're going to go and provide 1 extra for anybody who doesn't have 2. And then this guy gets the priority. And then it just sort of goes down the line here. So it'll look like that. And need to zoom out a little. So basically, there's 1 fighter more or less there, and then these are really stocking up really heavy. Then lastly, we do the German repair, and we rolled a 3-2, and we're just not getting lucky. These 2 repair. So we're getting slammed with those, but it is what it is. At least the heavy industries didn't repair, because that to me is worse. So it brings us to the end of round 3, the March of 1943. And I'm going to go ahead and post this video. So first of all, apologies to those who were watching the last series. It was not worth continuing to play. And welcome to anybody else who didn't, who's coming in here later and didn't realize there was another series that got deleted. I hope this helped. I probably didn't slow down as much, which some of you may have actually liked this video better for that reason. But we just did 3 rounds of play. And the game is going to just continue like this. The biggest wrinkles is we're going to get new campaigns, like we just got the railroad campaign, stuff like that. And it's going to continue like that until either we achieve victory or they do. I think the most exciting part is the calendar here, because we do get new units, and some units actually disappear for both sides. So anyways, thank you for watching, and as always, stay awesome.